Welcome to Life Rooms Chat. My name is Trish, Learning Facilitator at the Life Rooms. I'm here today with Chris, Trish and Dan, and we're going to talk about weight management. So firstly, if we can do some fun introductions. Chris, tell me a little bit about yourself and your history with weight management.
Yes, so my name's Chris and I'm a learning facilitator at the Life Rooms. I did a gym instructor's course some years back and it got me into the habit of going to the gym, and I got a lot from it. I got a lot of I felt better about myself, pushed my self-esteem up. And it's just made me keep on going, keep on doing it really.
Yeah.
So I get a lot from that.
Brilliant.
But it kind of folds over into other aspects of your life as well. So I've been watching what I eat much more since, if I'm putting the effort in, going to the gym, I don't want to be...
Don't waste it.
No.
And Trish, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, I'm a diabetes nurse educator. I'm based in with the South Sefton Community Diabetes team, and my role is really to basically support people who are either newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or who've been living with it for a long time, supporting them, empowering them, enabling them to understand their diabetes and how to self-manage it in the long term.
Yeah, brilliant. And Dan?
Yeah, so I'm someone who's obviously struggled up and down with my own weight over the years. I'm quite good at quitting things like diets in the gym and stuff like that. So I'm here to talk about sort of like the effects that I've had, including sometimes medication, and now I'm in a role where I work with people who take medications that can impact the weight. And so I kind of help with that side of it and helping them with nutrition and things like that as well.
And it's good to see from all those different sort of facets, and we were hoping to cover loads of stuff that's going to help us and help other people as well with regards to weight management. The first thing I want to talk about, which is going to be a big thing, is comfort eating. For me, it's a massive kind of part of what affects my motivation. Like you mentioned to me before, Chris, as we're going on, we get our activity in gear, we get moving, and then it comes to the night time, you feel a bit low, and it's, I can be a little bit of a nightmare with that. Have you got anything to share with regards to?
No, for me it's more of like a habit really.
Right.
I've got into a routine of when I do sit down and put the telly on, I've got something to nibble on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What I did find was, I used to have a terrible chili Doritos habit, but what I started doing was, if I had the whole bag, with the big bags, if I had the whole bag next to me, I'd just be like, oh my god, how fast did they disappear?
Yeah.
So I started thinking, well, I'll get a bowl, I'll put half of them in the bowl, and I'll put the other half away. And then I started looking for alternatives really.
Yeah.
So I could get those Japanese rice crackers and throw a few kind of chili flavoured things in there. But at the end of the day though, I still feel as I'm not really changing my habit.
Yeah.
I'm kind of changing hopefully how bad the thing is for me.
Mm.
But I feel as though I'm kind of cheating a bit because I'm just substituting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really relevant though to what you're saying, because one of the things that we look at is sort of supporting people in making those changes. Because if we were to say you can't have those chili Doritos, okay, you would crave them even more. Absolutely. So by making the change that you did, firstly by going, well, instead of eating the whole bag, I'm going to have a bowl. Okay, so you've automatically reduced your portion size, haven't you? With doing that. But then, you've then gone on to make other changes within that to make the habit change, and that's a really key factor, I think, when we're looking at trying to, to reduce weight and to improve our lifestyles.
Yeah.
I think that what's massive there is the fact that you've changed something rather than cut it out altogether. And I think that's why a lot of diets fail, because I know some diets are like, well, you don't eat carbs at all, but your body will crave them.
Yeah.
And if you give in to that craving, then you failed, and then it's the feeling of failure after that as well, when you've tried to do something and not being able to do it. So the fact that you're not taking away what you want, you just replaced it with something a bit healthier, and that has a massive impact. I mean, we're talking now about comfort eating. I'm a massive comfort eater myself. For me, it's not so much savoury things like Doritos, it's more the sweet stuff. So if I'm at home and I'm feeling a bit low, I will go and look for something like chocolate in the fridge or a biscuit out of the cupboard. I can drink a cup of tea, go do a full packet of biscuits, no problem. And that's where my problem is. So it's finding that substitute, and that's something that I've done recently as well. I do Slimming World now.
Yeah.
So I've taken away things like, instead of having like a Snickers bar, I'll have one of their hi-fi bars instead, and I'll have that as my treat, or I'll look for something like rice cakes are really good and they're really low fat.
Even though at first you might think, well, it doesn't taste as good as a Snickers, you get used to it, don't you? You get used to enjoying it, and then when you go back to other Snickers, it's like, oh, it doesn't taste as good as I remember.
And
That's what I've found.
It's like you said earlier, it can be a habit. If you do something enough, it becomes a habit. So what you're doing is, by replacing it with something else, you're still feeding that habit, but you're just feeding it with something healthier rather than having a bar of chocolate. You can have a rice cake, and you're still getting that sugar rush and things, but it's not obviously piling the weight on you because it's full of sugar and fat.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the fact that you're applying it, you're actually thinking about the decision you're making. Because when I come for eating out, sometimes I'm not, I kind of think, I fancy something sweet, but I can't decide what it is, so I go to the shop and buy 5 different things, and probably eat, the majority of them. But I think when you mentioned about sort of the more healthy kind of like chocolate, because I've had those and they are really nice. The nice chocolate bars, that it's a portion control.
Yeah.
It's smaller bar, but it gives you that, you kind of like tricking stuff. I'm giving you something, I'm feeding that the urge, but I'm doing it within a sort of measured portion, same as with the chili Doritos. But we're applying thought process to it, and I think when you come for tea, sometimes it's the fact your brain is not making that decision about what you're putting into your stomach.
Absolutely. It's a bit like mindless eating as opposed to mindful eating.
Yeah.
And you'll get through that bag of Doritos, or you'll get through that big pot of ice cream. Haven't really enjoyed it, because it's just because you've gone through it and it's gone now. But you still then might want something else, on top, because you're not really sort of valuing the food, that you're actually eating, and it's because it's come from either boredom, or stress, or if people are feeling anxious or in a low mood, and that's just me thinking, I'm going to go and get something.
Yeah.
So
Boredom's a big thing as well. Spending more time at home, or when you're away and it's raining, or you're stuck indoors. The first thing you want to do to kind of cheer yourself up is to have an ice cream, or have a bag of crisps, or, so boredom eating is a big thing. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially now with everything that's going on with COVID and things like that. A lot of people are at home when they wouldn't normally be. And I know myself, if I'm bored, the first thing I do is go and look in the cupboard or look in the fridge and see what's there, or have that little kick. And there's a medical thing behind it, because obviously they say chocolate releases endorphins, which makes you feel good. So especially with a low mood and with boredom, you need that little bit of a kick, and it gives you that little boost of energy. So it's easy to do that, you know what I mean? And just especially if you are bored.
Is dark chocolate better for you?
Apparently,
because that's got more of that chemical in it.
Apparently it is, but I don't like dark chocolate, you see. So
I've got used to it now. I didn't used to, but I must admit, and I can have 2 pieces of dark chocolate, and I'm okay. I feel satisfied.
Yes, I did that. So I remember at Market you used to get they started having those galaxies with the gigantic ones for like £2.
yeah.
I thought, do you know what? If I get one of them, that's going to last me like a week. But I just go through it. And
that's the reality, isn't it? It's there, and you've started eating it, and you think,
there's something to be said as well for like the mouth or the sensation. It's like when you were saying about biscuits. I love hobnobs, but I'll take 3 out now, and what I do is break them into bits, and I'll stick quarters in. But on my last one, I like to have like a big, at least half of a biscuit.
I think something you mentioned there is quite interesting as well, because I think about things like shopping habits, and what you mentioned there is if you know it's there, so you bought that big galaxy, so because you know that galaxy's there, you're going to be tempted to go and eat that galaxy because you know it's there, whereas if you don't buy it and you know it's not there, you don't crave it as much, if that makes sense. I know when I first started doing like diet and things and stuff like that, I became really conscious about the type of stuff that I was putting in the trolley, especially with having kids, because you do buy things for kids that aren't healthy, like chocolate bars and stuff, and then you know they're there, so you'll have them. Easter is an absolute nightmare because my fridge is full of Easter eggs. And knowing that they're there and they need to be used, kind of like, I give myself the excuse that, oh, it needs to be used up, so I'm going to go and eat it. When actually I'm just giving into a craving for something that I know is there. But if that wasn't there, I wouldn't have that urge to go and eat it, do you know what I mean?
It's that taking away the temptation.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that jumps out for me is food preparation and thinking in advance. So when those little moments hit us, you know, like with me, it's the emotional eating or the, you know, boredom eating or comfort eating or, and what preparation have I got in place to manage me through that? And it's having healthy snacks available. So I have a rule in my head that I can't eat anything naughty the day unless I've had my eggs and spinach. So that's my, okay, I've got to have eggs and spinach, that's a healthy way to start the day. And I think it's about having in the fridge, there's carrots, if I want to pick a carrot, so just to take the edge off, because when we make decisions when we're hungry or when we crave it, those are the ones that don't go too great. So I think food prep's a big thing.
Yeah.
And I think sort of, you know, having those available and making sure that you've got them in. You know, if you're going to the supermarket, you're putting your Easter eggs or your chocolate in, put your carrot sticks in. You know, things like those little mini cucumbers, you know, peppers, things like that. You know, and you've got those, chop them up, put them in a tub, and you haven't got to think, oh, I've got to get that out, I've got to chop it all up. It's there, it's ready. You know, and that's, you know, you will adapt to having that instead of the chocolate. Yeah. Just take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, but it does change.
I have a box now with certain things that have the same value wrote on it and stuff on the label, and that's classed as my treat box. So instead of going to the fridge where all the kids' chocolates are, instead if I want something, I won't say no, you can't have it. I'll go and I'll pick something that I know is within my daily allowance, and I'll have that as my treat. And then that way I'm still getting that feeling of I'm having a treat, but I'm not going for something that I know is really unhealthy, do you know what I mean? Because I know it's within my allowance, so I know I can have it and not have to feel bad about it. Because I think when you do eat things like chocolate and stuff, you do have that little bit of guilt afterwards.
Absolutely. And that comes in, doesn't it? That's all linked in, you know, with the comfort eating. And
I think with myself, if I was feeling down and I had like a full bar of chocolate, I just think, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, it's almost like you're kind of like punishing yourself, aren't you, by eating it as well. And
I think you can't, in your head, you're kind of coming from here to you know, and you think you get, and then when you drop, you've got to get all the way back up again. And one of the things that you and I have discussed sort of aside from here is about just small changes. And I think what, you know, so it is a case of if you do kind of eat the chocolate bar, so your small change that might be, I'm not going to have any chocolate for the next 2 days because I've had 3 days worth today. So it's incorporating little changes, like changing your Snickers to a healthier option. And I think because you work a lot with trying to get people to make small changes and ones like sustainable changes as well.
I think as well, because it's like you mentioned before about habits, you know, we all have our daily habits, you know, that we do without even thinking about them. Just a little tip that we use as part of our programme for education is we ask people to fold their arms. So if I can ask you to fold your arms, okay? So you did that basically without thinking about it. Okay, so now if I ask you to fold your arms the other way, so the hand that's on top goes underneath, and the one that's underneath goes on top. Does that feel a little bit? Does that feel a bit weird? It feels weird because it's not your habit. But if you practice that every day, that would then become your habit, and that's one of the ways that we try and you know, get people to look at making changes. So you know, instead of having that piece of chocolate, you know, that half a bar of chocolate, have 4 squares of chocolate, and make that your habit until you don't think about it anymore.
Because you deal with people, I suppose, who have had this life decision forced on them. So it's not like they've decided, oh, I could do with losing a bit of weight. Or these are people who've actually, something's happened in their life and now they've got to make some serious changes. Because again, Daniel and I talk about when you know, medication, sometimes other medical illnesses which can cause you to have to, and sometimes that can be a big upheaval, motivation-wise, you know, for your mental wellness. So the small steps, will help.
Absolutely.
And make it not feel as much of an uphill struggle when you're already feeling, you know, like the world's suffered you a bit of a blow.
Absolutely. Well, particularly with, you know, getting a diagnosis of having diabetes, it can be quite overwhelming because you go and see your GP for a pain in your ear and you come out with a diagnosis of diabetes. Very, very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then, you know, these people are told, right, okay, you might need to make some changes. Not everybody, but, you know, a lot of people need to make some changes. And that's, whoa, you know, what's happened here? And as you say, you know, we're not forcing those changes on people. We're saying to people, you really need to think about this, you know, for your health. So it's about sort of introducing those changes and how can we support you to actually do that.
Ironically, I have diverticulitis, and about 3 years ago I had an instance where a part of my bowel burst and I had to have surgery, and luckily they managed to repair it, but for 2 months after that I was on a specific soft diet. And what I found strange about that was the soft diet was stuff that generally is quite unhealthy for you, things like white bread, and I had to avoid things like vegetables and things with wheat in, and it was really strange because I was like sitting there and all of a sudden I had this excuse to eat really bad foods, but really bad foods that I enjoyed. And the ironic thing was I actually lost weight doing it. And I think what it was it wasn't so much that I was eating the wrong things. I think I was just more conscious of what I was eating.
It's conscious eating.
And the fact that I know this stuff isn't healthy, so I've got to be careful with it, do you know what I mean? And then after the 2 months, I could go back to a normal diet. It felt strange to go back to a normal diet. The one thing that I did kind of crave, which is even to this day I still do, I used to drink Pepsi Max quite a lot. And I always kind of said, I can drink that because there's no sugar in it, there's no fat. And then when I had this bowel burst, I was advised to kind of stay away from things that cause gases. So then, like my favourite drink, even though it's classed as a healthy drink, I can't have it anymore, and that was always quite strange to me. But then I found that I can drink juices more, but juices aren't necessarily healthy because of the amount of sugar.
Absolutely.
So it's strange because you look at some things that you think are really, really healthy for you that aren't. Because a lot of people buy on about things like 5 a day. So they'll buy things like smoothies and stuff like that, but they don't realise that to make that one smoothie, you might have 4 apples or 4 oranges, but in a normal day, you wouldn't eat 4 apples and 4 oranges, so you're taking in the sugar. And because it's all melted down, it makes the sugar come out more. So it's about consciously thinking about what you're eating as well, and not necessarily thinking that just because it's fruit, I can eat it 5 apples a day, because that's not healthy for you as well.
And this is the weight management. You know, this is why it's so difficult, because there are so many different views on things. You know, and different. What's latest in the press is, you know, and we're following them. You know, we talked about high protein diets earlier and low carbohydrate diets and things like that, and you kind of follow the advice that everyone's giving you, and sometimes it's, you know, really, really difficult to filter out what applies to you. And again, sorry Trish, I keep picking on you, but we talked before about finding the right diet for you, finding the right changes for you, and actually it's a very personal thing, isn't it? Management.
Absolutely, because there's never going to be a one size fits all. You know, we couldn't recommend one particular way for people to lose weight because it's not appropriate. People have different health conditions, people have different lifestyles, you know, and so what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else. So it's important that you think about, well, what is going to work for you? What would I like to do? What do I think I can do? You know, when you think about, you know, if you're working, if you've got kids, you know, you might be looking after grandchildren, or your mobility might not be that great. All those things are really, really important, and it's about thinking, what do I think is going to work for me? And you know what? You can try it, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. Then you try something else. You know,
what's right.
Absolutely.
We talked earlier on today about the exercise element of it. And I'm one of those people that if I think, right, I'm going to exercise now, I go from 0 to 60. So I'll go out and do a 3-mile run, and I hate running. And then I'll come home, and the next day I'll wake up and I'll be in agony, and I'll think, I'm not doing that again. And then that's given up. Whereas if I'd started slowly, as we talked about things like walking and then power walking and build myself up, I wouldn't have that negative feeling and that pain. And then I'd be less likely to give up on it. So
absolutely.
we things like that.
Small achievements, is it? That's a big one. That, you know, just walking a bit faster for 30 seconds, making that decision to do that, it's an achievement in itself. And it's like those small things you can apply to loads of different aspects of the
And I think in the life rooms videos that we have available of different types of exercise. So if you don't necessarily like walking, or you don't live in an area where you can just go out walking or running, there's things you can do at home. There's always little ways to get people active. And here at the life rooms we do try to reach everyone, don't we? So people aren't very mobile. We do seated exercise, we do seated yoga, things like that. But I think that the key thing is that there's always a little small step that you can take.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that would be saying about the small adjustments in what you eat, smaller portions and that kind of thing. That is a meaningful change.
Yeah.
And just walking a little bit faster or doing a small amount of exercise, a little bit more than you normally would, that is, it's a good thing to do.
And it's like what you mentioned there about some of the stuff that you can do that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to go to a gym or you've got to go and run around the park. I mean,
it's not all or nothing, is it?
Well, that's it. And the people that I work with, a lot of the negative body image comes into it then, so they don't want to go for a run in the park because they don't want people to see someone who considers themselves a fat person running and think that person might have a negative thought or think bad about them. One thing that I did years ago, and I thought it was brilliant, and it was actually something that was done when I was in a hospital, was resistance bands.
Yeah.
And the amount of stuff that you can do without even getting out of the chair with resistance bands. Now that's all exercise that you can do at home without having to go to the gym and worry about people looking at you, but you're still getting the same benefits from doing something that simple at home. So there are ways of doing it without killing yourself by doing an exercise video or going to the gym and looking at other people and feeling bad about yourself. You can do stuff at home and that makes you feel good, and you do get the rewards and the benefits from it as well.
And if what works for your friend doesn't necessarily work for you, doesn't mean you're a failure.
No.
It just means that you've got to find your own and enjoy that process of finding what works for you. If somebody invited me to a Zumba class, I'd probably take the whole Zumba class out with my lack of coordination, but then other people would love that, and I know I've worked with people here who love the dance element of things, and they get the groove on quite easy, and so it is just finding what works for you. We've covered loads of stuff today, and I'm really grateful. I just want to ask even more from you now, and I just want to ask if you've got one nugget of information or advice that has worked for you that you could apply to other people or that might help other people, what would it be? I'm going to go around the table, so I'm going to start with you, Chris, if that's all right.
One thing I was thinking of before about the portion size, I love stir fries, and years ago I'd get like a load of steak or a load of chicken, put it in my stir fry, and a bit of veg, just throw it in for good measure. But little by little I've been cutting the meat down, trying different veggies and putting a bit of that, and now I'm at the stage where I've got loads of veg and just a small amount of meat. And
it's cheaper as well.
I know, and I feel as though I'm doing something good there.
Yeah.
But it has been an incremental change, a gradual change.
Yeah.
So I think those tiny changes can lead to big changes. Over time. It hasn't got to be all or nothing. Like with the exercise as well. Little by little, and you get there.
Yeah, thank you. Trish?
I think sort of just to follow on from what you've just said there about sort of starting small, it's about taking that first step, isn't it? That's the hardest thing to do, I think, is to take that first step. But also, I think most importantly, to be realistic about what you want to achieve. Some people do have a significant weight loss, that they want to lose. Instead of thinking, oh gosh, I've got to lose 4 stone, think about, well, I'm just going to aim for half a stone first of all. So make your goals realistic, make them achievable, and set yourself a time frame, to do that in, and make that realistic as well. Don't say, well, I want to lose half a stone in 2 days.
There's something about celebrating the process there.
Absolutely.
As well. So don't wait till 4 stones, celebrate, wait till half a stone and say, well done me.
Absolutely. And if you write it down, if you actually make a plan and write it down, it's proven that you're much more likely to achieve that, and you can cross that goal off because you've done it and then move on to the next.
What I would say in addition to that, and this is something I've learned from doing Slim World, is it's not always about what that scale says as well. I know I went through a period of about 4 weeks where every week I get on those scales and the weight would stay the same. But I could feel that I'd lost weight in my clothes. So I had more room in my pants, my t-shirts didn't feel as tight, and it was frustrating because I was saying to the leader of the group, look, I know I'm losing weight, I can feel I'm losing weight, why are the scales not saying that? And sometimes it can be things like water and stuff like that. So what I started doing then was, instead of judging myself on my scales, I was judging myself on my codes and my measurements and things like that. That's really important. So I think that's a big thing, because it can be disheartening when you've tried hard all week and then you get on them scales and you don't see the benefits, but you'll see the benefits in other ways. It might be that you're healthier,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or you do feel it in your clothes, so it's not to get disheartened by that, because some weeks you won't have that weight loss, but then 2 weeks later it catches up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really
And
good
picking
point.
up on that as well, I will come to you if you're looking for advice, but picking up on that is something you said about writing down kind of what your goals are. But the other one thing for me is not just starting with a weight. Maybe take some measurements.
Yeah.
Maybe take a photo of yourself, you know, so you can see where your starting point is, and then you can measure different measures, not just what the scale's telling you.
Yeah,
You know, the
yeah.
tape measure will tell you different, the image that
Mhm.
you look at will tell you different. So finally, sorry, Dan.
So my thing is something, and I'll be honest, I don't know if it's true or not. It's something that my kids told me. They came home from school one day and they told me that they'd had a science lesson, and in that science lesson they'd been told that a person's taste buds changes every 6 years. So what that meant for me was that I've never been a big veg eater. I've ate carrots and peas, but I wouldn't touch broccoli, wouldn't touch spinach or cauliflower, anything like that. Now I eat those foods. I'll eat cauliflower, I'll eat broccoli, and it's weird because I never ate them because I knew I didn't like them, but then one time I had them and I thought, actually this is alright. And I think what it was I felt like I should be eating more veg, so I forced myself to eat it, but then when I was eating it I was thinking, do you know what, I actually quite enjoy this.
Yeah.
And with some foods, so especially vegetables, the way you cook it sometimes can make the difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Having a nice sauce or something.
Yeah.
Like I was saying about stir fries, as long as it's got sweet chilli sauce on it.
I thought
Anything.
I put broccoli and cauliflower into curries now.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
The flavour difference,
Yeah.
it doesn't taste like cauliflower or broccoli, do you know what I mean? And sometimes things like that can make the difference, so it's experimenting for me.
Yeah.
It's finding a way of cooking something that you traditionally might not like,
Yeah.
but finding a way that you actually eat it. Do you know what, I enjoy that. Stir fries is another one, you know, broccoli and stir fries and stuff like that, because half the time the other flavours mask the flavour of the thing that you don't like. So
So
it does make that
with
difference.
the broccoli, with the stir fry, it's kind of, you can't, I don't like it boiled. And I always thought broccoli just was boiled, that's what
Right.
it was. But in the stir fry, it's a bit crunchy.
And I discovered asparagus. So the first time I had asparagus, I had it boiled and I thought this is okay, but then the next time I had it grilled and it was lovely.
Yeah.
So sometimes just cooking it that different way
That's right.
makes all the
Experiment,
difference.
try anything,
Yeah.
don't be afraid
It
to
is.
try.
That's it.
Yeah.
So don't, just because you've had something once, don't assume that you don't like it. Try it in different things, in different ways, and then you'll find ways to actually enjoy the food that you're making.
Yeah, especially steaming with vegetables, particularly things like your asparagus and your broccoli. Because I don't know whether you notice when you boiled your broccoli and your asparagus, is all the colour comes out. Okay, if you steam it, if you can do that, and you can use a microwave, you know, to do things like that, the colour is much more vibrant, and you tend to keep a lot more of the vitamins and the nutrients, you know, in, and it's literally a couple of minutes, you know, for that as well. So
And experimenting cooking your own food, it hasn't got all the additives and stuff. It's
yeah,
got all
absolutely.
the added salt and the sugars and stuff like that. So that inspires me to try and cook as much as I can. It's good. I'm not very good at cooking like that. It's nice when you go, oh, that's
about
alright.
trying.
It is. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge everyone now. So based on what I said about your taste buds changing, I want you to think about a food that you probably hate, but you haven't tried in a long time, and try it again and just see whether or not you actually like it and see if it's true.
Give it a go.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. Hope it's been useful for you. You can pick up some tips. Make sure you tune in to our other Life Foods videos. Take care.